Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video, and actually a couple following this, I want to use Excel to kind of manage debt and find out how we can use Excel to keep track of debt, pay it off sooner, and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to start off really simple here, and we're going to do some weighted averages to figure out what is our average interest rate on multiple sources of debt. So it's pretty easy, straightforward formula. I'm going to keep track of a couple pieces of information. For instance, I'll do debt name, balance, and interest rate here. So I've got a few pieces of information that I want to keep track of. And who knows what your debt sources could be. They could be student loan, it could be credit card 1, credit card 2, maybe you have a home equity line of credit or something like that. Balance 20,000, 8,000, 4,000, 12,000. Let's just do a quick sum so we can see what our total debt is. Total debt is 44 grand. And let's go ahead and plug in some interest rates here. So for my interest rates, let's say student loan is 5%, credit card 1, let's say that's 11%, credit card 2 is 18%, the home equity line of credit, maybe that's 7%. Now, I don't want to get a total interest rate. That's not really a practical number to get, but I would like to get my average interest rate. And you might be thinking, okay, no big deal. I'll just do an equals average and select those, press enter, and you say, okay, my average interest rate is 10%. Well, that's not really accurate. Your average interest rate is not really 10% because a big portion of your debt, almost half of your debt, is this student loan, and that's only at a 5%. So we want a weighted average in order to have a more accurate number. So, and this is going to be a formula that I'm going to write out. I'm going to start off with an equal sign, as I do all formulas and functions. And I want to figure out the ratio of each individual debt to the total debt. Okay? And that's going to let me know my percentage, and then I can multiply that by the interest rate. So bear with me on this one, but this is how it would work. I'm going to start off with a set of parentheses so I can keep organized. And I'm going to take my student loan debt, and I'm going to divide it by my total debt, and I'm going to make total debt an absolute reference. Okay? 100% not necessary. Or not 100% necessary is what I should say, because I'm not really going to be filling this formula down anywhere. But I just wanted to kind of make sure we're clear on that. So individual item debt divided by total debt. Now, of course, that's going to get me a percentage. And if we estimate, since 20 is almost half of 44, then it's probably going to be something a little bit under 50%. In fact, just so we can see, I could press my enter key right now, and we'll see it's about 45%. So 45% of my debt is in this student loan. Okay, so I'm going to, all right, so that's good to know. So I'm going to take this information, and I'm going to multiply it by the interest rate for that student loan debt. Okay, so this is the basic procedure for everything that we're going to do to calculate this weighted average. So this information right here. I'm going to go and press my enter key, and we'll see we're getting to 2%. So that's the impact of my student loan debt on my average debt. So let's see how this works. Let's go ahead and take, and by the way, I do have to add this. So this is the weighted average of just the student loan portion of my debt. And I'm going to repeat this process a couple times. I'm going to take my credit card 1 debt, divide it by my total debt, and I'm going to multiply that by the interest rate of that credit card, plus credit card 2 divided by total debt, times credit card 2 interest rate, plus debt of the home equity line of credit divided by total debt. Oops, there we go. Times the interest rate on the home equity line of credit. And that really should take care of it. So I've got my student loan portion plus credit card 1 portion plus credit card 2 portion plus home equity line of credit portion. There we go. So as it turns out, my average interest rate is really not 10%. My weighted average is 8%. It's weighted because the big portion of my debt is the student loan. You say, well, gosh, is this really accurate? Sure it is. So let's say my student loan debt is $50,000. Okay? Since a bigger portion of my student loan debt is now part of the is a bigger portion of the total debt, that reduces because that's 5%. And this should make sense. If I had no credit card 1, no credit card 2, no home equity line of credit, of course the weighted average of my debt is the same as the interest rate for that one source of debt. Let's see, if we did, let's say we had 5% for this, 10% for this, and I had equal amounts of debt. Let's say $30,000 for my student loan, $30,000 for my, oops, let me escape out of that. $30,000 for student loan and $30,000 for credit card. Can you predict what you're going to see as soon as I press my enter key? Well, if my only two debt sources are the student loan and the credit card, and each one is 50%, then that must mean my weighted average is somewhere pretty much like a mathematical average. My weighted average will be somewhere in between 5 and 10, probably around 7.5%. So as soon as I press enter, I see 8, but if I were to show a decimal point, there we go, there's our 7.5%. So that's weighted average, and that'll come in handy when you are managing debt. Some financial advisors might say you target the debt. Let me put more realistic numbers in here. Some might say you target the debt that has the highest interest rate. Okay, and that's one way to go, and there's logic to that. Others might say target the debt that has the smallest balance. Okay, so if you pay off the one with the smallest balance, you feel good about yourself because you now have fewer debtors, and so that's kind of nice. So there's different approaches. Not one way is 100% right, but you do the technique that feels good to you. But once you know the weighted average, you have a better picture of how getting rid of some debt versus other is going to affect your overall interest rates.